The Future of Space Tourism, Exploring the Next Frontier. Written and published by Ciro Irmici. Feel free to subscribe for more content. Now let's get into the book. Introduction. The New Frontier, Exploring Space as a Tourist Destination. For centuries, humanity has gazed up at the stars with awe and wonder, dreaming of what lies beyond our planet. What was once the stuff of science fiction, journeys to the moon, orbiting the Earth, and exploring the depths of space, is now becoming a reality. We are standing at the dawn of a new era, one where ordinary people, not just astronauts, will have the chance to experience the wonders of space firsthand. Welcome to the age of space tourism. In recent years, a revolution has quietly taken place in the aerospace industry. Private companies, fueled by bold ambitions and groundbreaking technology, are racing to open the cosmos to commercial travel. Names like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic have transformed the impossible into the achievable. These pioneers have turned their focus to a market that few could have imagined even a few decades ago: sending tourists into space. But what does space tourism really mean? It is not just a joyride for the ultra-wealthy, nor is it simply about satisfying humanity's innate curiosity. Space tourism represents a monumental shift in how we view our place in the universe. It offers new opportunities for exploration, research, and economic growth, and it poses important questions about sustainability, accessibility, and governance. This book explores the rapid rise of space tourism, looking at the key players driving the industry, the technologies making it possible, and the experience that awaits those fortunate enough to take part. We will also consider the challenges, legal, ethical, and environmental, that come with opening space to commercial travel. As we stand on the precipice of this new frontier, it's clear that space tourism will not only redefine travel but will reshape how we think about our planet, our environment, and the vast unknown that surrounds us. The future of space tourism is thrilling, but it is also complex. This book aims to unpack that future, providing a roadmap to the stars for both dreamers and pragmatists alike. Join us as we explore the next giant leap for humanity, turning space into the ultimate travel destination. Chapter 1. The Rise of Space Tourism. From Science Fiction to Reality, a Historical Overview. Not long ago, the idea of space tourism seemed like pure fantasy, a dream reserved for the pages of science fiction novels and the imaginations of filmmakers. Yet, over the last few decades, the dream of traveling beyond Earth's atmosphere has steadily evolved from fiction into reality. This chapter explores the fascinating journey of space tourism, tracing its origins from speculative fiction to the early steps that have brought us to the verge of a booming industry. The visionaries, science fiction, and early imaginings. Long before engineers began building rockets capable of leaving Earth, writers were already dreaming of interplanetary travel. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, authors like Jules Verne and H.G. Wells thrilled readers with tales of moon voyages and extraterrestrial adventures. These stories fired the imaginations of millions, planting the seeds for a vision of space travel that would endure for generations. However, it wasn't until the space age of the mid-20th century that real progress began. The Soviet Union's launch of Sputnik in 1957 and the subsequent space race between the US and the USSR ignited global interest in space. While these efforts were focused on scientific exploration and military advantage, they laid the groundwork for the future of human space travel. The idea that someday space might be open to civilians, ordinary people, not just astronauts, began to take shape. The first space tourists, from the Cold War to the new millennium. The concept of space tourism didn't gain serious traction until the end of the Cold War. With the dissolution of the Soviet Union in the 1990s, Russia, eager to fund its cash-strapped space program, opened up the possibility of commercial spaceflights. In 2001, Dennis Tito, a wealthy American entrepreneur, became the first private citizen to pay for a trip to space. Tito's journey to the International Space Station (ISS), facilitated by Russia's space agency and aboard a Soyuz spacecraft, marked a monumental moment in the history of space tourism. Tito's flight was a turning point. For the first time, space travel was not limited to government astronauts or scientists. Though extremely expensive, Tito reportedly paid $20 million for his trip, It signaled that space was no longer out of reach for civilians, at least for those with the financial means. Over the next few years, a handful of other wealthy individuals followed in Tito's footsteps, purchasing their own tickets to space aboard Russian spacecraft. However, these early space tourists were the exceptions, not the norm. The technology and infrastructure necessary for routine commercial space travel were still underdeveloped. For most people, space tourism remained a distant dream. Enter the private sector, a new space race. In the early 2000s, a new generation of visionary entrepreneurs began to see space tourism as more than a novelty. It became a business opportunity. The private sector, led by companies like SpaceX, founded by Elon Musk in 2002, Blue Origin, founded by Jeff Bezos in 2000, and Virgin Galactic, founded by Richard Branson in 2004, began investing heavily in space technology with an eye toward commercializing space travel. The motivations of these entrepreneurs varied. For Musk, space tourism was a stepping stone toward his ultimate goal of colonizing Mars and ensuring humanity's survival as a multiplanetary species. For Bezos, space tourism represented a way to expand human civilization beyond Earth, eventually leading to the creation of space habitats. Branson, by contrast, had a more straightforward goal: to make space tourism an accessible and thrilling experience for adventure-seeking civilians. These companies introduced several innovations that dramatically lowered the cost of space travel and increased its feasibility for commercial purposes. Reusable rockets, pioneered by SpaceX with the Falcon 9, revolutionized the economics of spaceflight, making it far cheaper to launch payloads and passengers into space. Meanwhile, Blue Origin's New Shepard suborbital rocket and Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two were designed specifically with tourists in mind, aiming to offer short, relatively affordable spaceflights for paying customers. The present moment, the industry takes off. As of today, space tourism is no longer a distant possibility, it is happening. In 2021, Blue Origin made headlines when it successfully launched its first crewed spaceflight, with Jeff Bezos himself on board. That same year, Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two carried its first passengers, including Richard Branson, to the edge of space. SpaceX, which had already demonstrated its capabilities by sending astronauts to the ISS, has also entered the space tourism market with plans for private missions around the moon and beyond. These milestones represent the beginning of what many believe will be a booming industry. Analysts predict that by the 2030s, space tourism could become a multi-billion-dollar market, with companies offering everything from suborbital joyrides to extended stays in space hotels. As prices continue to decrease and technology improves, space travel may soon be within reach for a broader segment of the population. Challenges and opportunities. Despite the excitement, significant challenges remain. The high cost of space travel means that, for now, it is still limited to the ultra-wealthy. Furthermore, concerns about the environmental impact of rocket launches, as well as the regulatory and safety frameworks needed to ensure the industry's growth, must be addressed. However, the potential rewards are immense. Space tourism could open up new avenues for scientific research, foster international cooperation, and inspire the next generation of explorers. It could also serve as a catalyst for further technological innovation, pushing the boundaries of what is possible in aerospace engineering and space exploration. A new era begins. The rise of space tourism is one of the most exciting developments of the 21st century. What was once a dream shared by a few visionaries is now a reality, with the potential to revolutionize how we think about travel, exploration, and our place in the universe. As we look to the future, it's clear that space tourism will continue to evolve, shaping not only the aerospace industry but the very fabric of human experience. Chapter 2: Key Players in the Space Tourism Industry. Companies leading the way, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and more. The emergence of space tourism as a viable industry has been driven largely by a handful of visionary companies and the daring entrepreneurs behind them. These companies have not only revolutionized space travel by making it more affordable and accessible, but they have also injected a sense of excitement and competition into the space industry that hasn't been seen since the original space race. In this chapter, we'll explore the key players shaping the future of space tourism, their unique approaches, and the milestones they've achieved so far. SpaceX, pioneers of commercial space travel. No discussion of space tourism can begin without mentioning SpaceX, the company founded by Elon Musk in 2002. Originally created with the audacious goal of reducing space transportation costs and making human life multiplanetary, SpaceX has quickly become the leader in the commercial space industry. While its long-term focus is on colonizing Mars, SpaceX's achievements have already reshaped what is possible in space travel, and its impact on the space tourism industry is profound. One of SpaceX's most important contributions is the development of reusable rocket technology. Historically, rockets were discarded after each mission, driving up the cost of every launch. SpaceX changed this dynamic with the Falcon 9, the first orbital-class rocket capable of being reflown multiple times. This innovation drastically reduced launch costs, making space more accessible for a wider range of missions, including those involving civilian passengers. In addition to lowering costs, SpaceX has also created new opportunities for space tourism. The company's Crew Dragon spacecraft, which has successfully ferried NASA astronauts to the International Space Station (ISS), is also being used for private missions. In September 2021, SpaceX made headlines with its Inspiration 4 mission, the first all-civilian spaceflight, which orbited Earth for 3 days. This marked a significant milestone, proving that space tourism is no longer a dream limited to brief suborbital flights. Looking ahead, SpaceX has even more ambitious plans. It is developing Starship, a fully reusable spacecraft designed for deep space missions, including trips to the Moon, Mars, and beyond. Starship will be capable of carrying large numbers of passengers, and it could become a key vehicle for long-term space tourism, offering extended stays in orbit or journeys to other celestial bodies. Blue Origin, bringing space closer to home. Blue Origin, founded by Amazon's Jeff Bezos in 2000, is another major player in the space tourism race. While SpaceX has focused heavily on interplanetary travel and reusable rockets for a variety of missions, Blue Origin has specifically set its sights on making space tourism accessible to the general public. Bezos' vision for Blue Origin centers on the idea that millions of people will one day live and work in space, and tourism is the first step toward that reality. Blue Origin's primary vehicle for space tourism is the New Shepard, a fully reusable suborbital rocket designed to take passengers on brief trips to the edge of space. In contrast to SpaceX's orbital missions, which involve longer durations and more complex logistics, Blue Origin offers a simpler experience. A short, exhilarating journey that includes several minutes of weightlessness and stunning views of Earth from space. In July 2021, Blue Origin successfully launched its first crewed mission with Jeff Bezos aboard, demonstrating the viability of commercial suborbital space tourism. One of the advantages of Blue Origin's approach is its relative affordability. While still expensive by most people's standards, a ticket on New Shepard is expected to cost significantly less than an orbital flight, making space tourism more accessible to wealthy individuals who aren't billionaires. Blue Origin is also committed to safety, having performed multiple uncrewed test flights to ensure the reliability of the system before carrying passengers. In addition to its suborbital flights, Blue Origin has larger ambitions. The company is developing a larger rocket, the New Glenn, which will be capable of carrying payloads and passengers into orbit. Furthermore, Bezos has expressed interest in building space habitats and creating a sustainable infrastructure for human life beyond Earth. These developments position Blue Origin as a key player not only in the future of space tourism but in the broader commercial space industry. Virgin Galactic, space tourism for the adventurous. While SpaceX and Blue Origin have garnered much of the attention in the space tourism industry, Virgin Galactic, founded by British entrepreneur Richard Branson in 2004, was one of the first companies to declare its intention to make space tourism a reality. Branson's vision was to create a company that would offer spaceflights to adventurous civilians, providing an unforgettable experience of weightlessness and breathtaking views of the Earth's curvature. Virgin Galactic's approach to space tourism is centered around its Spaceship Two vehicle, which is carried to high altitude by a mothership before being released to rocket into suborbital space. The spacecraft is designed to carry 6 passengers and 2 pilots, offering a brief but thrilling journey to the edge of space. Virgin Galactic's goal is to create a space tourism experience that is not only awe-inspiring but also comfortable and relatively accessible compared to other options. The company's first crewed spaceflight took place in July 2021, with Richard Branson himself aboard, symbolizing the beginning of its commercial space tourism service. Virgin Galactic has since started selling tickets for future flights, with prices ranging around $450,000 per seat. Though this is still far from affordable for the average person, it represents a significant step toward making space tourism a more common experience. Virgin Galactic has focused heavily on the customer experience, designing its spacecraft to provide maximum comfort and visibility during the short trip to space. Large windows offer panoramic views of Earth and the stars, and passengers are able to float freely in the cabin for a few minutes of weightlessness before returning to Earth. Emerging players, new horizons in space travel. While SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic are the dominant names in the space tourism industry, other companies are beginning to emerge with their own visions for space travel. These companies, while not yet as well known, could play a crucial role in shaping the future of space tourism. One such company is Axiom Space, which plans to build the world's first commercial space station. Axiom's goal is to create a luxury space destination where tourists can stay for extended periods of time, experiencing life in low Earth orbit. The company has already signed agreements with SpaceX to ferry tourists to the International Space Station as early as 2024, laying the groundwork for future commercial space habitats. Another company making waves is Orbital Assembly Corporation, which envisions building space hotels that orbit the Earth. These space stations would provide tourists with a unique opportunity to stay in space for days or weeks, enjoying the views and experiencing zero gravity in a more luxurious setting than traditional spacecraft. Finally, Space Adventures, a company that helped arrange space flights for early space tourists like Dennis Tito, continues to offer bespoke space travel experiences. Though primarily targeting ultra-wealthy clients, Space Adventures has partnered with companies like SpaceX to offer missions that could one day include trips around the moon. The future of competition and collaboration. As competition heats up among these space tourism companies, the industry is likely to see rapid advancements in technology, safety, and accessibility. Each company has a unique approach. SpaceX focuses on long-duration orbital missions. Blue Origin emphasizes suborbital flights with a vision for sustainable space settlements. Virgin Galactic caters to thrill seekers looking for an unforgettable adventure. Yet, while competition is driving innovation, collaboration will also play a key role. Governments, space agencies, and private companies will need to work together to ensure that space tourism grows safely and sustainably. International cooperation on issues like space traffic management, environmental protection, and legal frameworks will be crucial as the number of space tourists increases. Chapter 3: The Technology Behind Space Travel. Rockets, Spacecraft, and Safety Innovations. Space tourism is not just a matter of adventure, it is a high-stakes technological marvel. The engineering feats behind launching people into space safely and affordably are some of the most advanced in human history. While the excitement of space tourism grabs the headlines, the real driving force behind this industry is the technology. From reusable rockets to life support systems and safety measures, this chapter explores the cutting-edge advancements making space tourism possible. Reusable rockets, the game changer. The concept of reusable rockets has fundamentally altered the economics and feasibility of space tourism. In the past, space missions were prohibitively expensive, largely because rockets were single-use. Each mission required a brand-new multimillion-dollar rocket that would be discarded after just one flight. This method made space travel a one-time use affair, contributing to astronomically high costs. However, companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin have completely changed that narrative with the advent of reusable rockets. SpaceX's Falcon 9 is perhaps the most significant development in this area. First introduced in 2010, the Falcon 9 was designed with a reusable first stage that could return to Earth, land vertically, and be refurbished for future launches. This innovation drastically reduced the cost of space travel, cutting the price of launches by millions of dollars. By reusing the rocket's most expensive component, SpaceX made routine spaceflight more economically viable, which in turn opened the door for commercial applications like space tourism. Similarly, Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket is fully reusable and specifically designed for space tourism. This suborbital rocket, which carries passengers briefly into space before returning to Earth, has been used multiple times for uncrewed and crewed test flights. Each successful reuse brings down the overall cost of space tourism, making it increasingly accessible to those who can afford the experience. Reusable rockets have revolutionized space travel by drastically lowering the barrier to entry. While ticket prices for space tourism are still high, as the technology matures, the cost will continue to fall. This trend is critical for the long-term viability of the space tourism industry. Spacecraft designed for tourists. Beyond the rockets that propel people into space, the spacecraft that tourists will ride in are equally important. These vehicles are designed not only to withstand the rigors of space travel but also to provide an unforgettable experience for passengers. Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two is a prime example. Unlike traditional rockets, Spaceship Two is a spaceplane that is carried aloft by a mothership, White Knight 2, before being released to rocket into suborbital space. Inside the spaceplane, tourists are treated to large windows, giving them a panoramic view of the Earth's curvature and the blackness of space. The cabin is designed to maximize comfort during the brief but exhilarating experience of weightlessness. SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft offers a different experience. Originally designed to carry astronauts to the International Space Station (ISS), Crew Dragon has been adapted for civilian space travel. It can carry up to 7 passengers into orbit, and its sleek, modern interior is built with safety and comfort in mind. Equipped with state-of-the-art touchscreen controls and a life support system that can keep passengers alive for extended periods, Crew Dragon is capable of long-duration missions. In the future, SpaceX plans to use Crew Dragon for more ambitious space tourism missions, including private trips around the Moon. Blue Origin's New Shepard capsule, though designed for shorter, suborbital flights, also prioritizes the passenger experience. With large windows, among the biggest ever flown in space, the New Shepard capsule provides stunning views during the few minutes of weightlessness its passengers experience. Like Virgin Galactic spaceplane, Blue Origin's capsule is designed for a brief but thrilling encounter with space, and the company is focused on making the experience as safe and enjoyable as possible. The role of artificial intelligence in automation. Modern spacecraft are equipped with sophisticated systems that rely heavily on artificial intelligence, AI, and automation. These systems are essential for managing the complex processes involved in space travel, from launch to re-entry. SpaceX's Crew Dragon is largely automated, meaning that once the spacecraft is in orbit, it can operate without much input from its passengers. This makes space tourism more accessible, as travelers do not need to be trained astronauts to pilot the spacecraft. The spacecraft's AI systems handle tasks such as docking with the ISS, maintaining orbit and managing life support functions. Passengers can focus on enjoying the experience, knowing that the spacecraft is equipped with redundant safety systems that will take over in case of an emergency. Automation also plays a significant role in reusable rockets. The ability of a rocket like SpaceX's Falcon 9 to land vertically on a floating platform in the ocean is largely due to advanced AI and real-time adjustments made by the rocket's onboard systems. This level of precision would be impossible without AI, and it is key to the success of reusable technology. As the space tourism industry grows, AI and automation will continue to enhance safety and improve the overall experience for passengers. These systems will also be crucial for longer missions, such as those to the Moon or Mars, where human oversight may be limited, and spacecraft must be able to manage complex tasks independently. Life support systems, keeping tourists safe in space. One of the most critical components of space tourism is the life support system that keeps passengers safe and healthy during their time in space. While the experience of space travel is thrilling, the environment is extremely hostile to human life. Without proper life support systems, even a short trip into space would be deadly. Spacecraft like SpaceX's Crew Dragon and Blue Origin's New Shepard are equipped with advanced life support systems that regulate oxygen levels, remove carbon dioxide, and maintain cabin pressure. These systems are designed to ensure that passengers can breathe normally and remain comfortable during their time in space. Temperature regulation is another vital function of the life support system. Space is an extreme environment, where temperatures can swing wildly between scorching heat and freezing cold. The life support systems onboard tourist spacecraft are designed to keep the cabin at a stable, comfortable temperature, protecting passengers from these extremes. In addition to regulating the cabin environment, life support systems also include emergency measures. For instance, SpaceX's Crew Dragon is equipped with an escape system that can quickly separate the spacecraft from the rocket in case of an emergency during launch. This system is designed to protect passengers in the event of a catastrophic failure, ensuring that they can return to Earth safely. Safety innovations, ensuring a safe journey. Space tourism by its very nature is risky. The extreme forces involved in launching people into space, the vacuum of space itself, and the challenges of re-entry all pose serious safety concerns. However, thanks to years of advancements in spaceflight technology, the risks are being mitigated. One of the most significant safety innovations is the development of abort systems that can safely return passengers to Earth in the event of a malfunction. Both SpaceX's Crew Dragon and Blue Origin's New Shepard have such systems in place. During a launch, if something goes wrong, the spacecraft can quickly separate from the rocket and deploy parachutes to bring passengers back to the ground safely. Additionally, extensive testing is a key factor in ensuring the safety of space tourists. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic conduct rigorous testing of their spacecraft and rockets before they are deemed ready for crewed missions. These tests include uncrewed flights, emergency abort scenarios, and real-world simulations designed to identify and address potential issues before humans are on board. Training for passengers is also an important aspect of safety in space tourism. While tourists are not required to have the extensive training of professional astronauts, they do undergo pre-flight preparation. This includes familiarization with the spacecraft, safety protocols, and what to expect during launch, time in space, and re-entry. By ensuring that passengers are well prepared, companies reduce the likelihood of complications during the flight. Looking ahead, future technological innovations. The future of space tourism will be shaped by continued technological innovation. As companies push the boundaries of what is possible, we can expect to see the development of new spacecraft designed for longer duration missions, more luxurious accommodations, and even space habitats where tourists can spend days or weeks orbiting the Earth. One exciting area of development is the possibility of hypersonic travel, which would allow passengers to travel around the world in just a few hours by flying through the edge of space. This technology could revolutionize not just space tourism but global travel, offering a new way to experience both the planet and the cosmos. As the technology behind space travel advances, it will also become safer, more efficient, and, eventually, more affordable. This progress will make space tourism more accessible to a broader segment of the population, transforming the industry from a niche market into a mainstream mode of travel. Chapter 4: The Cost of Space Tourism. Who can afford it? The economics of space travel. While the idea of space tourism has captured the imaginations of millions around the world, the reality of its cost has, so far, made it a luxury only accessible to the ultra-wealthy. The economics of space travel, driven by the complexity and danger of launching humans into space, have kept ticket prices astronomically high. But with rapid advancements in technology and increasing competition, the industry is inching toward a future where space travel might be accessible to a wider segment of society. In this chapter, we will explore the current costs of space tourism, the financial challenges involved, and when the average person might be able to afford a trip to the stars. The current cost of space tourism. As of now, space tourism remains prohibitively expensive for all but the wealthiest individuals. The prices vary depending on the company and the nature of the trip, whether it's a suborbital flight that briefly reaches the edge of space or a longer orbital mission. Here's a breakdown of the costs associated with the leading space tourism companies. Virgin Galactic. For a suborbital flight aboard Virgin Galactic Spaceship Two, the cost of a ticket is approximately $450,000. This price includes a brief journey to the edge of space, several minutes of weightlessness, and stunning views of the Earth's curvature before returning to the planet's surface. While significantly cheaper than orbital flights, this price tag still places space tourism out of reach for the vast majority of people. Blue Origin. A trip aboard Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket, which also offers a suborbital flight and a few minutes of weightlessness, costs around $250,000 to $300,000. While slightly less expensive than Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin's flights are similarly targeted at wealthy adventurers who are willing to pay for a once-in-a-lifetime experience. SpaceX. For those seeking a more ambitious journey, SpaceX offers the Crew Dragon experience, where passengers can orbit the Earth for several days. The cost for such a mission, as seen in the Inspiration 4 flight in 2021, is estimated to be around $55 million per passenger. SpaceX also plans private missions around the Moon and eventually Mars, which will come with even higher price tags. These trips are typically financed by ultra-rich individuals or sponsored by companies as part of larger marketing or philanthropic efforts. While these prices are daunting, it's important to note that they reflect the enormous technical and operational challenges involved in sending people to space. Rockets, spacecraft, and life support systems are extraordinarily complex and expensive to build, maintain, and operate. In addition, the rigorous safety testing and training required to ensure the passengers' safety further drive up the costs. Why space tourism is so expensive? There are several factors that contribute to the high cost of space tourism. 1. Rocket and spacecraft development. Building a spacecraft capable of safely carrying humans into space requires massive upfront investments. Companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic have spent billions of dollars developing the necessary technology. This includes everything from the rockets that propel passengers into space to the life support systems that keep them alive in the vacuum of space. 2. Launch costs. Even with advancements like reusable rockets, each launch still costs millions of dollars. Fuel, maintenance, and operational expenses all add up. For orbital missions, these costs are even higher due to the greater distance and complexity involved. 3. Safety and regulations. Ensuring that a space tourism flight is safe involves extensive testing, certifications, and regulatory approvals. Companies must comply with a range of safety protocols set by agencies like NASA and the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. This process is both time-consuming and expensive. 4. Insurance. Space tourism companies must also contend with the high cost of insurance. Given the inherent risks involved in space travel, insurance premiums are significant, and these costs are passed on to the customers. 5. Limited supply and high demand. At the moment, space tourism is a niche market with limited capacity. Only a handful of flights are offered each year, which keeps the prices high. As demand increases and more flights become available, there is potential for prices to decrease, but for now the exclusivity of the experience keeps ticket prices in the stratosphere. When will space travel become affordable? While space tourism is currently limited to the wealthy elite, there is optimism that prices will eventually come down, making space travel more accessible to a broader range of people. Here are some of the factors that could help reduce costs in the future. 1. Economies of scale. As more space tourism flights are conducted, the cost per flight could decrease due to economies of scale. This is similar to how commercial airline prices decreased over time as air travel became more common. As companies refine their technologies and streamline operations, they will be able to lower prices and offer more frequent flights. 2. Technological advancements. Continued innovation in rocket and spacecraft technology will likely drive costs down. Reusable rockets have already drastically reduced launch costs, and further advancements could make space travel even more affordable. Companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are continuously working to improve the efficiency and reliability of their rockets, which could eventually lead to lower prices for consumers. 3. Increased competition. As more companies enter the space tourism market, increased competition could lead to lower prices. While SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic currently dominate the industry, other companies such as Axiom Space and Space Adventures are working on their own space tourism ventures. This competition could drive innovation and force companies to lower their prices to attract more customers. 4. Government support and partnerships. Governments around the world are increasingly recognizing the economic potential of the space tourism industry. Some governments may choose to subsidize or invest in space tourism as a way to promote technological innovation and economic growth. Partnerships between private companies and government agencies could help reduce the financial barriers to space travel. 5. Spaceports and infrastructure. As more spaceports and infrastructure are built around the world, the logistical challenges and costs associated with launching spacecraft will decrease. Right now, space tourism flights are limited to a few specialized launch sites, but in the future there could be a network of spaceports, similar to airports, that facilitate regular space flights. Despite these potential cost-reducing factors, it's likely that space tourism will remain a luxury for the foreseeable future. However, as prices fall, the pool of potential customers will expand. Eventually, space tourism could become comparable to the cost of an expensive international vacation, a possibility that would open the market to millions more people. Financing space travel, sponsorships and lotteries. For those who aren't billionaires but still dream of going to space, some creative solutions have already emerged. For example, the Inspiration 4 mission, which sent 4 civilians into orbit aboard SpaceX's Crew Dragon, was largely funded by a billionaire who donated seats on the spacecraft to raise awareness and funds for charity. Such sponsorships and philanthropic endeavors could provide opportunities for regular people to experience space travel, even if they can't afford the price tag. Additionally, some companies have floated the idea of spaceflight lotteries, where individuals could buy tickets for a chance to win a free trip to space. This would democratize access to space tourism, allowing a broader range of people to participate without having to pay full price. In the future, space tourism companies may also offer payment plans or financing options for customers, much like how luxury items or expensive vacations are financed today. This could make space tourism more accessible to middle-class consumers who are willing to save or take out loans to fund their journey. The long-term economic impact of space tourism. As the space tourism industry grows, its economic impact will extend far beyond just the companies involved in launching rockets. The development of spaceports, the creation of new jobs in engineering and aerospace, and the potential for space tourism to stimulate technological innovation will all contribute to a growing space economy. Tourism in space could also lead to the creation of entirely new industries. For example, there are already plans for space hotels, space-based research facilities, and even lunar and Mars colonies that could serve as tourist destinations. The economic ripple effect of these developments could be enormous, creating opportunities for businesses in a variety of sectors, from hospitality to construction. Moreover, as space tourism becomes more common, it could inspire new generations of scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs, driving further innovation and investment in the space sector. In this sense, space tourism is not just a luxury for the wealthy but a catalyst for broader economic growth and technological advancement. Chapter 5: Space Tourism and the Environment. The impact of space travel on Earth's ecosystem. As space tourism takes off, it brings with it more than the excitement of venturing into the cosmos. While the idea of commercial space travel captures imaginations, it also raises important questions about its environmental impact. Rockets, spacecraft, and the entire infrastructure supporting space tourism have the potential to affect Earth's ecosystem in significant ways. In this chapter, we'll explore the environmental costs of space travel and examine the efforts being made to ensure that this burgeoning industry develops sustainably. The environmental cost of rocket launches. At the heart of space tourism is the rocket, an engineering marvel, but also a source of considerable environmental concern. Each rocket launch requires a massive amount of energy, primarily derived from burning fuels that release greenhouse gases and other pollutants into the atmosphere. The immediate environmental impact of these launches, particularly their carbon footprint, is a subject of growing debate. The primary fuels used in space tourism rockets today are liquid oxygen combined with kerosene or liquid hydrogen. While liquid hydrogen used by companies like SpaceX burns cleanly and produces water vapor as a byproduct, other fuels like kerosene release carbon dioxide and black carbon soot into the upper atmosphere. Black carbon in the stratosphere can contribute to climate change by trapping heat, and its long-term effects are still being studied. Furthermore, each rocket launch produces an intense thermal impact as it punches through the atmosphere. While the number of launches remains relatively low compared to commercial aviation, as the space tourism industry grows, so too will the cumulative environmental toll. Even reusable rockets, hailed for their ability to lower costs and reduce waste, still require significant fuel for each launch and re-entry. The ozone layer and atmospheric effects. Another concern is the potential damage rocket launches can inflict on the ozone layer. The ozone layer, which protects life on Earth by absorbing harmful ultraviolet radiation from the sun, is particularly vulnerable to pollutants like chlorine and alumina particles emitted by certain rocket fuels. Although the damage caused by a single launch is minimal, an increase in the frequency of launches could lead to more significant depletion of the ozone layer, particularly if no measures are taken to mitigate these effects. Studies on rocket emissions have shown that particles released in the upper atmosphere can have a longer-lasting impact than those released closer to Earth's surface. This means that the environmental footprint of space tourism may not be immediately noticeable, but its long-term effects on the atmosphere could be profound if left unchecked. Space debris, an orbiting problem. While the immediate environmental impact of rocket launches is significant, space tourism also contributes to a growing problem beyond Earth's atmosphere: space debris. Space debris consists of defunct satellites, spent rocket stages, and other fragments left behind from human activity in space. As more spacecraft are launched, especially for tourist missions, the risk of adding to this space junk increases. Space debris poses a significant threat not only to future space tourism missions but also to operational satellites and space stations. Collisions between debris and active spacecraft can have catastrophic consequences, creating even more debris in the process. Managing and mitigating space debris has become a priority for space agencies around the world, but the increasing commercialization of space tourism adds complexity to this challenge. Efforts are being made to address this issue, including designing spacecraft that can deorbit themselves after use and developing systems to remove debris from orbit. However, as space tourism grows, there will need to be strict regulations and innovative solutions to prevent the proliferation of space debris from spiraling out of control. Steps toward sustainable space tourism. As the environmental challenges of space tourism become clearer, companies and governments are beginning to take steps to ensure that this new industry develops sustainably. Several key areas of focus include reducing rocket emissions, improving fuel efficiency, and minimizing space debris. SpaceX has led the way in developing reusable rockets, which represent a significant step forward in reducing waste. Each reuse of a rocket stage lowers the environmental cost per flight, as fewer resources are needed to build new rockets for each launch. This reduces the overall carbon footprint of space tourism, though the issue of fuel emissions remains. Moreover, Blue Origin has taken steps to emphasize sustainability in its operations. The company's new Shepard rocket, which is used for suborbital tourism flights, is powered by a liquid hydrogen and oxygen fuel mix, which produces water vapor as its primary emission. This makes it one of the cleaner rocket systems in use today, though the production of liquid hydrogen still requires significant energy. There is also growing interest in the development of alternative fuels that produce fewer emissions. Some companies are researching biofuels and synthetic fuels that could be used to power rockets in the future. While these technologies are still in their early stages, they hold promise for reducing the environmental impact of space tourism in the long term. The role of regulation and international cooperation. Ensuring the sustainable development of space tourism will also require strong regulatory frameworks and international cooperation. Currently, there is no global regulatory body specifically overseeing space tourism, though agencies like NASA, the European Space Agency (ESA), and the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) have some jurisdiction over space launches and safety. However, environmental regulation of space activities is still a developing area. As space tourism grows, governments will need to establish clear guidelines for minimizing the environmental impact of rocket launches and managing space debris. This could include setting limits on emissions, requiring companies to offset their carbon footprints, or mandating the use of technologies that reduce the environmental impact of space travel. International cooperation will be essential to address the global nature of space tourism. Just as climate change and environmental protection require collaboration across borders, so too does the management of space tourism's environmental impact. The United Nations Outer Space Treaty, which governs activities in space, provides a starting point for cooperation, but more specific environmental regulations will likely be needed as the industry grows. Space tourism as an opportunity for environmental awareness. Ironically, space tourism itself may become a powerful tool for raising environmental awareness. Astronauts and space tourists alike often describe the overview effect, a profound sense of connection and responsibility toward Earth that comes from seeing the planet from space. From this vantage point, the fragility of Earth's atmosphere and the interconnectedness of life on the planet become overwhelmingly clear. As more people experience space travel, this perspective could inspire greater environmental stewardship. Companies involved in space tourism are already recognizing this potential and emphasizing the importance of protecting Earth's environment as part of the space tourism narrative. Virgin Galactic, for example, highlights the potential for space tourism to inspire environmental consciousness by giving passengers a new perspective on Earth. Likewise, SpaceX's long-term goal of colonizing Mars is framed not only as a way to expand humanity's reach but also as a reminder of the importance of protecting Earth, the only planet we currently know can support life. Balancing exploration and environmental responsibility. The future of space tourism will require a delicate balance between human exploration and environmental responsibility. As exciting as the prospect of venturing into space is, it cannot come at the expense of the very planet that makes life possible. The technologies and policies developed today will set the foundation for a space tourism industry that can thrive without harming the environment. As space tourism expands, the challenge will be to continue pushing the boundaries of human exploration while ensuring that our impact on Earth remains sustainable. The hope is that with careful planning, innovation, and international cooperation, space tourism can open new frontiers without jeopardizing the health of our planet. Chapter 6: Legal and Ethical Considerations. Space Laws, Liability, and Ethical Dilemmas. The rise of space tourism brings with it not just technological and environmental challenges, but a host of legal and ethical questions that humanity has never faced before. As ordinary people prepare to venture beyond Earth's atmosphere, laws and regulations governing space travel need to evolve rapidly. Beyond the legal aspects, the ethical dilemmas of who gets to go to space and at what cost also become pressing. This chapter explores the legal frameworks, liability concerns, and ethical debates shaping the future of space tourism. Space law, a new frontier. Space, unlike any other destination, is governed by international law. The foundation of modern space law is the Outer Space Treaty of 1967, signed by more than 100 countries. This treaty established several key principles, including that space is the province of all mankind, meaning it cannot be claimed by any one nation or used for military purposes. It also emphasized that countries are responsible for all space activities conducted by their private citizens or companies. However, while the treaty laid the groundwork for peaceful exploration, it was written long before the concept of commercial space tourism existed. As private companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic lead the charge in making space travel accessible to civilians, legal frameworks need updating to address this new reality. One critical issue is whether these companies have the same obligations as national governments under the Outer Space Treaty, particularly when it comes to responsibility for potential accidents or damages in space. Many legal experts argue that while space law covers broad principles, there are significant gaps when it comes to regulating the specifics of space tourism, such as liability in case of accidents, the protection of space tourists, and the environmental impact of private space activities. Currently, governments regulate these companies, but there is no global body specifically overseeing commercial space activities. Liability and responsibility. Space tourism introduces a unique set of liability concerns. What happens if something goes wrong during a spaceflight? Who is held responsible for accidents, injuries, or damage caused by private space missions? In most countries, space tourism companies must obtain a license to launch spacecraft, and part of this process involves adhering to national safety regulations. In the United States, for example, the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) oversees commercial spaceflight and mandates that companies inform passengers about the risks involved. However, these regulations still place much of the responsibility on passengers, who are required to sign waivers acknowledging the inherent dangers of space travel. In the event of an accident, the liability of the company may be limited by these waivers. At the international level, the Liability Convention of 1972 holds countries responsible for damage caused by space activities, but this primarily applies to government space agencies, not private companies. As the number of private space missions increases, questions arise about how liability should be divided between governments and companies. If a space tourist were to be injured or killed during a flight, or if a spacecraft were to crash into a foreign satellite, who would pay for the damages? These legal gray areas need to be clarified as space tourism becomes more common. Additionally, as space tourism expands to orbital flights and potentially lunar missions, liability issues will become even more complex. Space tourists will be exposed to unique risks, from exposure to radiation to the dangers of re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. While current regulations may cover suborbital flights, more detailed legal frameworks will be necessary for longer missions beyond Earth's orbit. Ethical dilemmas. Space for the few or the many? Beyond the legal aspects, space tourism raises significant ethical questions. One of the most glaring is the issue of accessibility. Currently, space travel is an exclusive experience reserved for the ultra-wealthy, with ticket prices ranging from hundreds of thousands to tens of millions of dollars. This raises the ethical question of whether space, which has been deemed the province of all mankind, should be accessible only to those who can afford it. Critics argue that space tourism is a distraction from more pressing global issues, such as poverty, inequality, and climate change. At a time when many people on Earth lack access to basic necessities, should we be spending vast amounts of resources to send a privileged few on joyrides to space? Moreover, space tourism's environmental impact adds another layer of complexity to this ethical debate. How do we justify the environmental costs of sending people to space when those resources could be used to address climate change on Earth? On the other hand, proponents of space tourism argue that it can inspire innovation and foster a deeper appreciation for our planet. The overview effect. The profound shift in perspective experienced by astronauts when they see Earth from space could help cultivate a sense of environmental stewardship among space tourists. Space tourism may also act as a catalyst for technological advancements that could have broader benefits, much like the early space programs spurred innovations in telecommunications, medicine, and computing. The ethics of human expansion beyond Earth. As space tourism expands, so too does the possibility of human settlement beyond Earth. Visionaries like Elon Musk have long touted the idea of colonizing Mars, not just as an adventure for the few, but as a way to ensure humanity's survival in the face of existential threats like climate change or nuclear war. But this vision raises ethical concerns about the exploitation of other planets and the environmental impact of expanding human civilization into space. Should we be prioritizing the colonization of Mars, for example, when we have yet to solve many of the challenges facing Earth? Furthermore, who gets to decide how we use space resources such as lunar water or asteroid minerals? While the Outer Space Treaty states that space is the common heritage of mankind, the reality is that powerful nations and corporations are poised to dominate space exploration and resource extraction. The ethical implications of space tourism and eventual space colonization also touch on the potential for inequality in access. If only the wealthy can afford to escape to new worlds, does this create a future where the elite leave a struggling Earth behind, while the majority of humanity remains to face its challenges? These are questions that will need to be addressed as we contemplate the role of private companies in shaping the future of space exploration. Informed consent and space tourist rights. Another ethical issue concerns the safety and rights of space tourists themselves. Unlike professional astronauts who undergo extensive training and accept the risks associated with space travel as part of their job, space tourists are often ordinary people with little or no experience in the dangers of spaceflight. While current regulations require space tourists to sign waivers acknowledging the risks, is this enough? Should space tourists receive more comprehensive training, and should companies be held to higher standards of safety? There is also the question of what rights space tourists have once they are in space. For example, if a medical emergency occurs aboard a spacecraft, what protocols are in place to ensure the tourist's safety and well-being? These are important ethical considerations that will need to be addressed as space tourism becomes more widespread. International collaboration and shared responsibility. The ethical and legal questions surrounding space tourism are not confined to national borders. Space, by its very nature, is a shared domain, and the actions of one country or company can have global consequences. As such, international collaboration will be essential in developing a fair and comprehensive framework for space tourism. International organizations such as the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNOOSA, play a key role in facilitating dialogue between countries on space issues. However, with the rapid growth of private space companies, there is a need for more robust international agreements that address the unique challenges posed by space tourism. These agreements will need to balance the interests of different countries while ensuring that space remains a shared resource for all of humanity. Navigating the legal and ethical challenges ahead. Space tourism, as thrilling and groundbreaking as it is, forces us to confront new legal and ethical challenges. From questions about liability and regulation to the broader ethical concerns of accessibility and environmental responsibility, the future of space tourism will require careful consideration and collaboration. As more people journey beyond Earth, it is crucial that we develop legal frameworks and ethical guidelines that ensure space travel benefits humanity as a whole, not just the privileged few. Chapter 7. The Experience of Space Tourists. What to expect. From zero gravity to orbital views. The allure of space tourism goes beyond the technological marvel of launching a spacecraft or the prestige of being among the few to leave Earth. It's the experience itself, the feeling of weightlessness, the breathtaking views of our planet from above, and the profound sense of perspective that comes with venturing beyond the atmosphere. This chapter delves into what space tourists can expect during their journey, from pre-flight preparations to the moment they return to Earth. The build-up, preparing for the journey. Before any space tourist leaves Earth, there's a process of physical and mental preparation that begins weeks or even months before the actual flight. While space tourists aren't subjected to the rigorous training of professional astronauts, companies like Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, and SpaceX provide their passengers with basic training to ensure they're ready for the experience. Pre-flight training typically involves a combination of medical evaluations and familiarization with the spacecraft. Tourists undergo health checks to ensure they're fit for the journey, as space travel, even on short flights, can be physically demanding. The body's response to microgravity and the forces of launch and re-entry can put significant strain on the cardiovascular and musculoskeletal systems, so medical clearance is essential. In addition to health assessments, space tourists are given briefings on the spacecraft's systems and safety protocols. This preparation allows them to understand what to expect during launch, the time spent in space, and re-entry. While the spacecraft are largely automated, passengers are taught how to handle potential emergencies, such as cabin depressurization or communication issues. But perhaps the most exciting part of pre-flight training is the opportunity to experience simulated zero gravity. Many space tourists take part in parabolic flights, where an airplane flies in steep arcs to create brief periods of weightlessness. This gives them a taste of what it will feel like to float in space, offering both a physical and mental preview of the main event. The thrill of launch. The moment that space tourists have long awaited begins with the thunderous roar of the rocket's engines igniting. As the spacecraft begins its ascent, passengers are pressed into their seats by the force of gravity, which intensifies as the rocket climbs. For suborbital flights like those offered by Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin, this phase lasts only a few minutes, but it's an intense experience. Passengers feel the immense acceleration of the spacecraft as it escapes Earth's gravity, creating a sensation of weight that can be several times stronger than normal. As the spacecraft reaches the edge of space, the engine cuts off, and the once crushing force of acceleration is replaced by the surreal sensation of floating. Passengers are now in microgravity, where the laws of physics feel entirely different. Objects drift freely, and passengers can unbuckle their seatbelts to float around the cabin. For those aboard suborbital flights, this period of weightlessness lasts only a few minutes before the spacecraft begins its descent back to Earth. However, those on longer orbital flights like those offered by SpaceX can experience this sensation for days, orbiting the Earth while floating weightlessly the entire time. The view, Earth from above. One of the most profound moments for space tourists is seeing Earth from space. Descriptions of this view often include a sense of awe and wonder, as the familiar blue planet suddenly appears as a fragile, glowing sphere against the vast darkness of space. The contrast between the vibrant colors of Earth, its oceans, landmasses, and clouds, and the black void of space creates an emotional and sometimes life-changing experience. Astronauts have long spoken of the overview effect, the cognitive shift in perspective that occurs when seeing Earth from orbit. Many describe a deepened appreciation for the planet's beauty and a renewed sense of responsibility for its protection. Space tourists, even on shorter suborbital flights, often experience a similar transformation. The large windows in spacecraft like Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two and Blue Origin's New Shepard capsule are designed to maximize this experience. Passengers are encouraged to take in the view, capturing photographs and videos of the Earth below. For those on longer orbital flights, like those offered by SpaceX's Crew Dragon, the experience is even more profound, as they circle the planet multiple times, watching the sunrise and sunset over the horizon in quick succession. The sensation of weightlessness. The feeling of weightlessness is often cited as one of the highlights of the space tourism experience. It's an entirely new way of interacting with the body and the environment, as passengers are no longer bound by gravity. In this state, everything seems to float effortlessly, and even the simplest movements, like pushing off a wall, can send you drifting across the cabin. However, the experience of weightlessness can also be disorienting, especially at first. Without gravity's pull, the body loses its usual cues for balance and movement. Many first-time space travelers report feeling a sensation similar to vertigo, as the brain adjusts to this new environment. The inner ear, which normally helps us maintain balance, becomes less reliable in space, leading to a sense of dizziness for some. Fortunately, this sensation typically passes as the body adapts to microgravity. On shorter suborbital flights, the weightlessness lasts only a few minutes, offering a brief but unforgettable taste of floating in space. On longer orbital flights, passengers have more time to adjust and explore the possibilities of movement in a gravity-free environment, from somersaulting through the cabin to experimenting with how objects behave when not anchored by gravity. Re-entry: the journey back to Earth. As the space tourist journey comes to an end, the spacecraft prepares for re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. Re-entry is a crucial and sometimes dramatic part of the flight, as the spacecraft must withstand the intense heat generated by its passage through the atmosphere. The return to Earth can be a bumpy ride, with passengers once again experiencing high G-forces as the spacecraft slows down during its descent. For suborbital flights like those of Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic, re-entry is relatively quick. After descending through the atmosphere, the spacecraft deploys parachutes to slow its descent before making a controlled landing back on Earth. Passengers typically experience a rapid shift from the sensation of weightlessness to the pull of gravity as they descend. In contrast, orbital flights like SpaceX's involve a longer re-entry process. The spacecraft must slow down significantly from its orbital speed before re-entering the atmosphere. Passengers feel the intense deceleration as the spacecraft hurtles back to Earth, followed by the sensation of gravity returning as they descend. Once the spacecraft has landed, passengers are greeted by recovery teams, who help them exit the capsule and reacclimate to Earth's gravity. For many space tourists, This moment is both exhilarating and surreal. After experiencing the vastness of space and the sensation of floating, the return to solid ground brings a new appreciation for the everyday reality of life on Earth. The emotional aftermath. The experience of space tourism often leaves a lasting emotional impact on those who take the journey. Beyond the physical sensations and the thrill of the adventure, many space tourists describe a deep emotional response to the experience. Seeing Earth from space, feeling the weightlessness, and reflecting on the fragility of our planet often lead to profound personal insights. For some, the journey reinforces a sense of connection to the global community, while others feel a newfound responsibility to protect Earth's environment. The journey to space can shift one's perspective on life, sparking new ideas, passions, and commitments. Many space tourists find that the experience stays with them long after the flight is over, influencing how they live their lives and view the world. Chapter 8: Space Tourism for the General Public. When will space travel become affordable for all? As space tourism captures headlines and the imagination of millions, a key question looms. When will ordinary people, beyond the ultra-wealthy, be able to afford a trip to space? The idea of space as a travel destination for the general public feels tantalizingly close. Yet the current reality remains that space tourism is a luxury experience available only to a select few. However, technological advancements, increased competition, and evolving business models suggest that space tourism may not always be so exclusive. In this chapter, we explore the factors that could make space travel more affordable and accessible to everyday people. The path to more affordable space travel. The first step toward making space tourism accessible to more people is reducing the cost of launching rockets and maintaining spacecraft. For decades, launching anything into space was prohibitively expensive, with costs in the tens of millions of dollars per mission. However, the introduction of reusable rockets has begun to lower these costs significantly. Companies like SpaceX have pioneered reusable launch systems that allow rockets to be flown multiple times, reducing the need to build entirely new rockets for each mission. This innovation alone has slashed the price of launching cargo and passengers into space, and as the technology improves, costs are expected to continue falling. The principle behind reusable rockets is simple. Instead of discarding the rocket after one use, it's refurbished and flown again. Each time this process is repeated, the cost per flight drops. SpaceX, for example, has dramatically reduced launch costs with its Falcon 9 rocket, which can be reused multiple times. Blue Origin is following a similar path with its New Shepard rocket, which is designed for short, suborbital tourism flights but can be reused with minimal refurbishment. As these technologies mature, the hope is that space travel will become increasingly affordable, just as air travel became cheaper and more accessible with the advent of reusable airplanes. Increased competition and market growth. The early days of space tourism have been defined by a few dominant players: SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic. But the growing interest in commercial space travel is likely to attract new companies and entrepreneurs to the market. Increased competition could help drive down prices, as businesses compete to offer the most affordable and appealing options for space tourists. In the long term, the entrance of new players could lead to a boom in the space tourism industry, similar to the expansion of the commercial airline industry in the 20th century. As more companies enter the field, offering everything from brief suborbital flights to longer stays in space, the increased supply of space tourism services could help bring down costs. While today's space tourism industry is primarily focused on wealthy individuals looking for a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, a larger market for middle-class tourists is on the horizon. Many analysts believe that as companies scale up their operations and streamline their processes, ticket prices will begin to fall, perhaps to the point where space travel becomes a viable option for middle-income earners. The role of innovation and technology. Beyond reusable rockets, other technological advancements could help make space tourism more affordable. One potential area of innovation is the development of more efficient propulsion systems. Currently, most rockets rely on chemical propulsion, which is expensive and requires large amounts of fuel. However, new types of propulsion, such as electric or nuclear-powered engines, could make space travel more cost-effective by reducing fuel requirements and extending the range of spacecraft. Another promising area is the concept of spaceplanes, aircraft that can take off and land like traditional planes but are capable of reaching space. Unlike traditional rockets, spaceplanes could use runways for takeoff and landing, potentially reducing the cost and complexity of space launches. Companies like Virgin Galactic are already experimenting with this concept, and further developments in this area could help make space tourism more accessible to a wider audience. In addition, the infrastructure supporting space tourism is likely to improve over time. Currently, spaceports, facilities where spacecraft are launched and landed, are limited in number and location. However, as demand for space travel grows, more spaceports could be built, improving accessibility and lowering logistical costs. This could lead to a future where space travel is as routine as flying to a different country, with spaceports located around the world, offering frequent and affordable flights to space. Economic and social impacts of lowering cost. As the cost of space tourism decreases, the social and economic impacts could be profound. Lowering the financial barrier to space travel would allow a much broader segment of the population to participate, potentially democratizing access to space. Imagine a future where space tourism isn't just a luxury for billionaires but an exciting travel option for adventurers from all walks of life. The ripple effects of affordable space travel would likely extend beyond the tourism industry. Increased demand for space flights could spur economic growth in other sectors, such as aerospace engineering, hospitality, and education. The creation of space hotels, spaceports, and other infrastructure necessary to support a growing space tourism industry would generate new jobs and business opportunities, further driving down costs through economies of scale. Moreover, the ability to experience space could inspire new generations of scientists, engineers, and innovators. Just as the Apollo missions in the 1960s inspired a generation of space enthusiasts and technology pioneers, the rise of space tourism could ignite a new wave of interest in science, technology, and exploration. When will space travel be affordable? While predicting exactly when space travel will become affordable for the general public is difficult, many experts believe that it could happen within the next 2 to 3 decades. Much depends on the pace of technological advancements and the ability of space tourism companies to scale their operations. For now, ticket prices for suborbital flights remain high, with Virgin Galactic and Blue Origin charging hundreds of thousands of dollars for a seat. Orbital missions like those offered by SpaceX are even more expensive, with costs running into the tens of millions. However, the trajectory is clear. As technology improves and more competitors enter the market, prices will come down. The process of making space tourism affordable will likely mirror the evolution of air travel. In the early days of commercial aviation, only the wealthy could afford to fly. Over time, as airlines expanded and technology improved, prices fell, and air travel became accessible to the masses. Space tourism is following a similar path, and while it may take time, the day when space travel becomes affordable for the average person is not as far off as it once seemed. The future vision: space as a common destination. Looking further into the future, some visionaries see a world where space travel is as routine as flying across the country. Companies like SpaceX, with its plans for Mars colonization, and Blue Origin, with its vision of millions of people living and working in space, are pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Space tourism is the first step toward a future where humanity is no longer confined to Earth. As prices drop and technology advances, space could become a common destination, not just for the adventurous elite but for people from all walks of life. Imagine vacations in space hotels, weekend getaways to low Earth orbit, or even journeys to the Moon or Mars as part of a regular travel itinerary. While this future may seem distant, the groundwork is already being laid. Space tourism is no longer just a dream, it's a reality, albeit one that's still out of reach for most. But with each new technological breakthrough and each new space flight, we move closer to a future where space isn't just the final frontier, but a destination open to all. Chapter 9: Future Innovations in Space Tourism. Hypersonic flights, space hotels, and beyond. As space tourism takes its first steps into the mainstream, the visionaries behind the industry are already looking far ahead. The future of space travel promises more than just brief trips to the edge of space or orbits around Earth. It could reshape how we think about travel, leisure, and even human settlement. This chapter explores the cutting-edge innovations on the horizon, from hypersonic flights that could revolutionize air travel to the ambitious idea of space hotels, and even further to long-term plans for lunar bases and Mars colonization. Hypersonic flights, changing global travel. One of the most exciting innovations emerging from the space tourism industry is the potential for hypersonic flights, air travel at speeds that far exceed what commercial airplanes can achieve today. Hypersonic flight, generally defined as speeds greater than Mach 5, 5 times the speed of sound, could revolutionize how we travel on Earth by dramatically reducing flight times. Imagine boarding a flight in New York and landing in Tokyo in just over an hour. That's the promise of hypersonic travel. While still in its early stages, companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are actively developing technologies that could make this a reality. The same reusable rockets that are launching tourists into space could, one day, also be used to ferry passengers between distant points on Earth at a fraction of the current time. SpaceX, for instance, has floated the idea of using its Starship spacecraft for point-to-point travel on Earth. With hypersonic capabilities, Starship could take off from a spaceport, travel through the upper atmosphere at hypersonic speeds, and land halfway across the globe in a matter of hours. This would not only revolutionize tourism but also have profound impacts on global commerce, business, and even diplomacy as the world becomes more connected than ever before. Space hotels, a new kind of destination. Beyond hypersonic flights, the future of space tourism holds even more ambitious goals, including the construction of space hotels. These floating accommodations orbiting high above the Earth could become the next frontier in luxury travel. Companies like Orbital Assembly Corporation and Axiom Space are already working on concepts for space hotels that would allow tourists to spend days or even weeks in space. These hotels would offer stunning views of Earth, unparalleled weightless experiences, and the chance to live in an environment entirely free from the constraints of gravity. Orbital Assembly's plans for a space hotel involve building a rotating station that would simulate artificial gravity by using centrifugal force. This would make long-term stays in space more comfortable, allowing guests to experience some level of gravity while still enjoying the novelty of being in space. Guests would be able to float freely in designated areas and sleep in low-gravity zones, while dining, recreation, and relaxation would take place in areas with artificial gravity. The idea of space hotels opens up a whole new category of tourism. Beyond the adventure of simply visiting space, these hotels could become destinations in their own right, offering luxury amenities, fine dining, and unique experiences like spacewalks or viewing the sunrise and sunset from orbit multiple times a day. The appeal of such a destination could attract not only space enthusiasts but also wealthy travelers seeking a truly one-of-a-kind experience. Lunar bases and moon tourism. As space tourism evolves, the next logical step is to go beyond Earth's orbit and venture to other celestial bodies. The most likely candidate for early off-world tourism is the moon. With plans from companies like SpaceX and government agencies like NASA to return humans to the moon within the next decade, the dream of moon tourism is becoming more tangible. SpaceX's Starship is designed to carry large numbers of passengers to the moon, and NASA's Artemis program aims to establish a sustainable human presence on the lunar surface. While these early missions will focus on exploration and scientific research, the infrastructure they develop could eventually pave the way for tourists. Moon tourism, while likely still decades away from being widely accessible, could involve guided tours of lunar landmarks like the Sea of Tranquility, the site of the Apollo 11 landing. Imagine walking on the moon's surface, gazing at the Earth from 384,000 kilometers away, or exploring lunar caves and craters. These experiences would redefine the concept of travel, taking humans to places previously thought unreachable. In the long term, the development of lunar bases could open the door to extended stays on the moon. These bases, equipped with life support systems, habitat modules, and sustainable energy sources, could serve as destinations for tourists looking to experience life on another world. Lunar bases could also be used as stepping stones for further exploration, serving as launch points for missions to Mars and beyond. Mars, the ultimate destination. While the Moon represents a near-term goal for space tourism, the ultimate destination for many visionaries is Mars. Elon Musk, in particular, has been vocal about his goal to make humanity a multiplanetary species by colonizing Mars. While the idea of regular trips to the Red Planet may seem far-fetched today, companies like SpaceX are actively working on the technology to make it a reality. Mars presents unique challenges for space tourism. The journey to Mars is long, approximately 6 to 9 months each way, and the environment is hostile to human life. But with advancements in spacecraft technology and life support systems, Mars could one day become the most adventurous and remote travel destination imaginable. For those willing to undertake the long journey, Mars offers a world of stunning landscapes, towering volcanoes, vast deserts, and deep canyons. The experience of visiting Mars would be unlike any other, offering travelers the chance to set foot on another planet, explore its surface, and witness the stark beauty of the Martian landscape. While mass tourism to Mars is still far in the future, the groundwork is being laid by the pioneers of today. A glimpse into the far future. As we look even further into the future, the possibilities for space tourism become almost limitless. Beyond Mars, other destinations in the solar system, such as asteroids, moons of Jupiter and Saturn, or even distant planets, could one day be within reach. Technologies like nuclear propulsion or advanced space habitats could extend human presence across the solar system, turning space tourism into space migration. Long-term visions for space tourism also include the possibility of interstellar travel. While currently the realm of science fiction, concepts like the Breakthrough Starshot initiative aim to develop the technology needed to send spacecraft to other stars. Though this kind of travel may be centuries away, the idea of visiting planets in other solar systems, worlds that are entirely unknown to us today, is a testament to the boundless potential of human exploration. The expanding frontier. The future of space tourism is full of promise and potential. What began as short suborbital flights could evolve into a vast industry that offers everything from quick trips to the edge of space to extended stays in luxurious space hotels, lunar adventures, and even journeys to Mars. The innovations being developed today are laying the foundation for a future where space travel is not just the domain of astronauts and the wealthy elite, but an experience accessible to many. As technology continues to advance, space tourism will expand humanity's horizons, offering us new perspectives, new experiences, and new ways to explore the universe. What once seemed like the stuff of science fiction is now within reach, and the next chapter in human history may well be written among the stars. Chapter 10: The Role of Governments in Space Tourism. Policy, Regulation, and International Cooperation. As space tourism moves from a futuristic dream to a tangible industry, governments around the world find themselves in a delicate position. They must balance the excitement and innovation of private space ventures with the need to establish rules, ensure safety, and manage the broader implications of space travel. While companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and Virgin Galactic lead the charge, government involvement is essential to shaping the future of space tourism. This chapter delves into the role that governments will play in regulating the industry, fostering international collaboration, and ensuring that space remains a safe and accessible frontier for all. Establishing a regulatory framework. One of the primary challenges facing governments is the need to develop comprehensive regulatory frameworks for space tourism. Unlike traditional industries, space travel operates in an environment where existing laws don't always apply. International agreements like the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 laid the groundwork for space exploration by stating that space belongs to all humanity, and no nation can claim sovereignty over celestial bodies. However, these agreements were drafted long before commercial spaceflight and private tourism became feasible, leaving significant gaps in the legal landscape. Governments are now tasked with updating or creating new regulations that address space tourism specifically. In the United States, for example, the Federal Aviation Administration (FAA) oversees commercial space travel, ensuring that launches are safe and passengers are aware of the risks. Passengers on space tourism flights must sign waivers acknowledging the dangers, but as the industry grows, more detailed rules regarding safety standards, environmental impacts, and liability are likely to emerge. Beyond safety, governments must also consider the environmental implications of frequent rocket launches, the potential for space debris, and the protection of space resources. As more spacecraft are launched, the risk of contributing to space debris, fragments from defunct satellites, spent rocket stages, and other objects in orbit, grows. This creates a significant challenge for regulating not just what happens on Earth, but what happens in orbit and beyond. International cooperation and space governance. The nature of space travel inherently transcends national borders, making international cooperation critical to the development of space tourism. Space is a shared resource, and the actions of one country or company can have global consequences. To ensure that space tourism develops safely and sustainably, governments will need to work together to establish common rules and norms. International organizations like the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNOOSA, play a vital role in facilitating dialogue between countries on space-related issues. However, the commercial space sector adds a layer of complexity. Private companies are now leading the charge into space, and their activities, whether launching tourists into orbit or extracting resources from asteroids, raise new questions about jurisdiction and regulation. One key issue that international cooperation will need to address is the allocation of space resources. As the technology for space mining develops, questions about who has the right to extract and use resources from the Moon, asteroids, or other celestial bodies will need to be settled. While the Outer Space Treaty asserts that space is the province of all mankind, there is little clarity on how resources in space should be governed or shared. Governments will need to work together to ensure that space tourism and exploration benefit humanity as a whole, rather than creating new inequalities. The potential for space tourism to reach new destinations such as the Moon or Mars will also require coordinated international efforts. Who has the authority to regulate tourism on the Moon? How will countries manage the impact of human visitors on fragile celestial environments? These are questions that will need to be answered in the coming decades as space tourism expands beyond Earth's orbit. The role of national space agencies. While private companies are driving much of the innovation in space tourism, national space agencies like NASA, the European Space Agency (ESA), and Roscosmos continue to play a crucial role. These agencies provide vital infrastructure, research, and technical expertise that support the broader space ecosystem. NASA, for example, has been a key player in developing the technologies that make space tourism possible. Through partnerships with private companies, NASA has helped develop new spacecraft, such as SpaceX's Crew Dragon, that are now being used for both scientific missions and commercial tourism. NASA's Artemis program, which aims to return humans to the Moon, could also lay the groundwork for future lunar tourism by building sustainable infrastructure on the lunar surface. Space agencies are also instrumental in ensuring that space tourism remains safe. Their decades of experience in space exploration give them a deep understanding of the risks and challenges associated with human spaceflight. By collaborating with private companies, these agencies help establish best practices and safety standards for the emerging space tourism industry. In some cases, governments may also use space tourism as a diplomatic tool, fostering international collaboration and peaceful relations through shared exploration goals. The International Space Station (ISS) serves as a prime example of how space can bring nations together. The ISS is a joint venture between NASA, Roscosmos, ESA, and other space agencies, and it has hosted astronauts from around the world. Future space tourism ventures could build on this legacy of international cooperation, promoting peaceful use of space. Ensuring equitable access to space. As space tourism evolves, there is a growing concern about who gets to participate. Currently, space travel is accessible only to the wealthy, raising ethical questions about the fairness of this new industry. Should space, a resource that belongs to all of humanity, be reserved only for those who can afford it? How can governments ensure that space tourism does not widen existing inequalities but instead offers opportunities for a broader segment of society? Some governments and organizations are already exploring ways to democratize access to space. For example, NASA's Inspiration 4 mission in 2021, which sent 4 private citizens into orbit aboard a SpaceX spacecraft, was part of a charitable initiative that aimed to raise funds for cancer research. The mission also included a lottery component, giving ordinary people the chance to participate in space travel without paying the high price of a ticket. Similar initiatives could help make space tourism more accessible in the future. Governments may also need to consider policies that encourage greater diversity in space tourism. This could involve offering grants or subsidies to students, scientists, or educators, ensuring that space travel benefits not just the wealthy but society as a whole. By promoting equity and access to space, governments can help ensure that space tourism becomes a tool for inspiration and education, rather than a symbol of privilege. Balancing exploration with environmental responsibility. One of the most pressing challenges for governments is balancing the excitement of space exploration with the need to protect Earth's environment. Space tourism, like any industry, has an environmental footprint. Rocket launches release greenhouse gases and other pollutants into the atmosphere, and the potential for space debris adds to the environmental risks of space travel. Governments will need to regulate the environmental impact of space tourism carefully. This may involve setting limits on the number of launches, requiring companies to offset their carbon emissions, or investing in the development of cleaner propulsion technologies. As the industry grows, minimizing its environmental footprint will be essential to ensuring that space tourism is sustainable in the long term. Beyond the environmental impact on Earth, governments will also need to consider the preservation of celestial bodies. The Moon, Mars, and other potential tourist destinations are fragile environments that could be easily damaged by human activity. International regulations will likely be needed to protect these sites, ensuring that space tourism does not cause irreparable harm to the places we seek to explore. Conclusion: shaping the future of space tourism. Governments around the world play a vital role in shaping the future of space tourism. As the industry grows, national and international regulations will need to evolve to ensure safety, sustainability, and equitable access. From establishing legal frameworks for commercial space travel to fostering international cooperation and environmental stewardship, governments will be key players in the development of this exciting new frontier. The future of space tourism holds immense promise, but it also comes with great responsibility. As humanity moves beyond Earth and into the cosmos, the decisions we make today will shape the course of space exploration for generations to come. Governments, working in partnership with private companies and international organizations, have the opportunity to ensure that space tourism opens up new possibilities for all of humanity, safely, sustainably, and equitably. Conclusion: the final frontier. What's next for humanity in space? Space tourism, once a far-fetched dream reserved for science fiction, is now a rapidly growing reality. The advent of commercial space travel marks a pivotal moment in human history, one where the boundaries between Earth and the cosmos are slowly beginning to blur. But as we look ahead, we must ask, what does this mean for the future of humanity? What are the broader implications of our venture into space? At its core, space tourism is about more than just adventure and novelty. It represents a new phase of exploration, one that reflects the deep-seated human desire to push boundaries, explore the unknown, and seek out new experiences. But it also raises important questions about the values we bring with us as we extend our reach beyond Earth. The impact of perspective. Perhaps the most profound legacy of space tourism will be its impact on how we see ourselves and our planet. The overwhelming consensus from astronauts and now space tourists is that viewing Earth from space changes one's perspective. The overview effect, as it's often called, instills a deep sense of connection to our planet and to humanity as a whole. From the vantage point of space, Earth appears fragile, small, and interconnected, a reminder that the divisions and conflicts we face on the surface pale in comparison to the vastness of the universe around us. For many space tourists, the journey may not just be about the thrill of floating in microgravity or watching the Earth from afar. It may be a journey inward, a chance to reflect on our place in the cosmos and our responsibility to protect the planet that sustains us. As more people experience space travel, The hope is that this new perspective will inspire greater efforts to address global challenges like climate change, environmental degradation, and inequality. A new era of innovation. The growth of space tourism also signals the dawn of a new era of technological innovation. The push to make space travel safer, cheaper, and more accessible has already led to groundbreaking advances in rocket design, propulsion, and space habitats. These innovations will not only benefit space tourists but could also have far-reaching implications for life on Earth. Much like the technological spin-offs of the Apollo program, such as advancements in computing, telecommunications, and medical technologies, space tourism could drive innovation in fields as diverse as transportation, energy, and materials science. For example, the development of reusable rockets, pioneered by companies like SpaceX, has already reduced the cost of space travel, and further innovations could make high-speed global travel possible, shortening long-distance flights to just a few hours. In this way, space tourism serves as both an industry and a catalyst for technological progress, pushing humanity toward new frontiers of innovation. The ethical dimension. But with these advances come ethical questions that must be carefully considered. Space tourism, as it currently stands, is accessible only to the wealthy. The exorbitant cost of a ticket to space raises concerns about who gets to participate in this new frontier and who is left behind. If space becomes a playground for the elite, what does that say about our priorities as a species? How can we ensure that space exploration benefits all of humanity, not just a privileged few? In the long term, governments, companies, and international bodies will need to grapple with how to make space more accessible. This means addressing issues of affordability, inclusivity, and responsibility. It also means ensuring that the development of space tourism doesn't come at the expense of environmental sustainability, both on Earth and in space. As we send more people into space, the need for responsible exploration becomes even more pressing. Celestial bodies like the Moon and Mars are not just destinations. They are part of a delicate cosmic ecosystem that we must protect. Ensuring that space tourism develops in an environmentally conscious way will be critical to preserving these environments for future generations. Humanity's place among the stars. In the grander scheme, space tourism is a stepping stone, a signpost on the path to humanity's long-term presence in space. While the focus today is on suborbital joyrides and orbital vacations, the broader vision includes permanent settlements on the Moon, Mars, and beyond. The desire to explore, to push the boundaries of what is possible, will continue to drive humanity forward, just as it has for centuries. But with each step into the unknown, we must pause and reflect on why we are going and how we want to get there. Space tourism, as part of this larger journey, invites us to think about what kind of future we want to build, not just in space but on Earth as well. Will we carry the same mistakes and inequalities into the cosmos? Or will we use this opportunity to create a more inclusive, responsible, and thoughtful approach to exploration? The next giant leap. Space tourism is only the beginning. As technology evolves, the possibilities for human space exploration will expand in ways we can barely imagine. Today's tourists are merely the first wave, testing the limits of what is possible. Tomorrow we may see lunar vacations, colonies on Mars, or even expeditions to the outer planets. The excitement of space tourism lies not just in the destinations but in the journey itself. Humanity's drive to explore is unquenchable, and the journey into space is an expression of that deep-seated desire. Each step we take into the cosmos brings us closer to understanding not only the universe but also ourselves, our potential, our creativity, and our capacity to dream. As space tourism opens new doors, the final frontier is no longer just a distant horizon. It's a destination, a new home for the human spirit, and a reminder that our reach extends far beyond the limits of Earth. The stars are waiting, and space tourism is just the beginning of humanity's next giant leap. This brings us to the conclusion of our journey through the future of space tourism. Let me know if you'd like any final adjustments or additions.